we're now going to talk, I'm going to talk about this gentleman here, who is Ralph Wedgwood. Now if you've heard of the Wedgwood family, they were people the original Josiah Wedgwood was part of the great pottery industry in the 18th century. And he and his brother, also a Josiah Wedgwood, were direct descendants from that family, and a key to the story here. So Ralph Wedgwood, Sir Ralph Wedgwood, was the chair of the Railway Executive Committee, and it was through him that he negotiated with his brother, who was an MP, Josiah Wedgwood, to find somewhere for a certain gentleman to shelter when needs be. And that was before some other spaces were made available. Anyone think they might know who that certain gentleman was? That's right, Sir Winston Churchill. Who was the Prime Minister of the country during the wartime period, as I'm sure many of you may be aware. Now, where did he shelter? This is before the cabinet war rooms were built, and Downing Street wasn't deemed safe enough for him to be, and although he was a reluctant shelterer, he was persuaded down here over a period of 40 nights, not every night, between October 1940 and December 1940, which was during the period of the Blitz, which was the bombing of London by the German Luftwaffe between the 7th of September 1940 and the 10th of May 1941. And we know for a fact that he sheltered down here on the 24th of October 1940. And much of this we know from, as we mentioned already, his secretary, who was Sir John Colville, and who wrote this diary, which tells us so much about what happened down here. And we know that he sheltered probably just about where you're standing, actually, in front of Sir Cole Deacon's. It's actually his room here we're standing in, Sir Cole Deacon's room.
Okay, we're going this room. We're now in the operating control room. This was manned by 3 guys, going 24/7. This is really the people who put into practice the decisions, and they worked out the train movements. These would all be very experienced people from the big 4 railway companies. I know there's only 3 of them, but they would have been selected from the big 4. So their job would have been to work out route trains through, because basically virtually any train would have probably traversed at least 2 of the big 4's network. And the things we've got here is, for instance, ambulance trains being organised. And basically these characters would be on the phone communicating out to their companies saying, we want to move train X up to wherever it is in the country. This room again, you'll see we're on the platform at the moment. You've walked alongside the brick wall, alongside the platform edge. They had radio in here, which they linked by coaxial cable from the roof. We have our perennial clock on the wall, and there's a mark on the wall over there. I won't shine from here because I'll blind somebody. It shows us where it is. And the other thing that's very, for our times of non-smoking offices, this was not a non-smoking building. Every picture has ashtrays in it. And given the closed space down here, God knows what it was like. I suppose they were used to it. It must be real fug, although, as we said, they had first air conditioning down here. I don't think it probably quite compensated for the situation. And I rather like beautiful ceiling tiles. I have to be very careful because some people still have these. But you can, again, you've got a false ceiling was put in here, and that is part of the ventilation system up there. You just put a grid on a bit higher up. And you've got to remember, when they were running this, it's pre-Beecham, and it's after the Second World War, a lot of lines got closed as well. So you've got a far bigger, much more complex railway system. And presumably they'd have to react if they learnt of a particular line being bombed in order to reroute trains. And any train you happen to be travelling on as a passenger, I think, was just routed out of the way and sat beside him until their key trains went through. I think on that we should move onwards and find out how these people got through their day.
We're going to be moving on to the sleeping quarters. We're going to walk through a passageway where there are lots of other little rooms that were dormitories. And as we don't have so much time in the actual dormitory that we're going into, it'd be a good idea just to shine your torches in and have a look in those small dormitories, and do also look at the decor in them, because that's very important. Trains ran almost as regularly as they do today, if not as regularly. There were literally 20 hours a day of trains, so you can be lucky to get 4 hours kit. Now, on the other side were non-executive dormitories, so they were 5 foot by 7 foot dormitories, but they could have between 1 and 3 people sleeping in them. We have just gone along by the executive dormitories. Now, what did anyone notice on the walls?
Some wallpaper.
Wallpaper, exactly. So if you were an executive, you got wallpaper. And also if you're a woman, you got wallpaper. So there were 8 executive dormitories along this side, plus 4 for women. But we know there were 8 women, so they obviously had to rotate. And let's hope they clean the sheets in between. Who knows? We're not told about laundry facilities down here. So that's basically, we've been going all along here. We're going to go across. We've walked through walls, because there were originally walls between the storeroom and the executive rooms. And then we shall be double back going along here. The other thing to note about the executive rooms is that they had a bed in them, they had built-in cupboards, and we can still see those witness marks you may have noticed for those cupboards. And they even had a basin in with only cold water, I'm afraid. But we, again, at the bottom of you can see the base of where the pipes of the basins were within the rooms as well. So that's this plan. Before you want to take too much detail, you will get a copy of this in your pack at the end. The other interesting thing about it is that it was published on the 17th of November 1944 in the Railway Gazette. Now that was a magazine that you could buy anywhere off the shelf, and so in 1944 everyone could find out how the station was divided up. In 2015, 2014, very different kettle of fish, very different matter. Most of this was top secret information, and only really this year, or rather this information has been released to the public again. So this is why a lot of the research has had to take place by the London Transport Museum to find this information out. But in 1944, easy squeezy.
Okay, we'll get her on. Right. You all in? All in. Well, no prizes for knowing where we are. We're in the kitchen, and you'll notice it's very much like you'd expect to see on a restaurant cart. There's one head chef here, and we think at least a couple of assistants. There's also a head waiter and 3 waiters work down here. And this is a pretty well equipped room. Again, we have a wonderful mark on the wall where the clock sat, which is up on the corner there. This place turned out around 27,000 meals a year, because you've got a full-time operation going every day. We haven't got too much information on what they actually ate. They would have been off rations, because if you were in a stressful occupation, you were off rations. We do know that they got the odd cheese, biscuits and cheese on occasions down here, but we don't know what else happened down here in terms of food. The other thing we do know is they did acquire some people who liked food down here in the form of cockroaches, and in 1942 they had infestation, which apparently not only was in the kitchen, but there's reports spread through the rest of the buildings. That must have been really great fun when you're living down here and you've got those as well. So we've seen where the food was prepared. There were 2 places people could eat. There was a staff mess, which you're going to go past, which took 16 people. And Marion's going to talk to us about the executive. I suppose that was the dining room, wasn't it?
So we're now in the executive mess, and this could hold 12 people at a time. And we can see that these wonderful chairs from the railway hotels have been brought down here. We've got beautiful white starch tablecloths, silver cutlery, glasses, wonderful brandy on the tables, and really almost the height of luxury, really, in a half a tunnel. And of course we've got the clock as well. So we've got this quote here by John Colville, who was Churchill's secretary, and wrote in his diary, "Caviar almost unattainable in these days of restricted imports. Perrier Jouet, 1928, and 1865 brandy and excellent cigars." So we can imagine that looks like they're in the height of luxury, but if we kind of look twice, we think, well, Perrier Jouet, 1928, well, that's not something that would have been easily bought. That's something that would have come from the stashes of one of the railway hotels.
It's fine, sorry.
And then probably cigars. So cigars and things like that, again, they probably were a stash of them from the supplies. So although it looks like they're living up a life of luxury, it's not things that were necessarily brought in specially. We do know that Churchill dined down here, and certainly he was here in just in November 1942, I believe, when it was just after the bombing of big bombing, where they made the decision to open the deep level shelters, and it literally was the next day they made that decision. So we definitely know that he did dine down here as well, but how often we're not sure. So the other thing is they smoked here. There's always an ashtray, and we've been pointed out before, so you did need that ventilation, so such as up there, the air conditioning, definitely something that we needed. So, well, we've come to the end of the dining. We're going to go back to some more things which we don't quite know so much about, but Eric's going to lead the way.
Yes,
with that.
fact sewage pumping equipment, because we're way below the sewage level, sewers here. And we also got marks up on the wall which indicate there's some rooms that go on the stair.
So just on the wall here, there's just one final trace of original writing from the Leslie Green original station. Obviously something about stair, maybe it's just trains, to the trains probably. But really this space is quite a mysterious area because there is nothing recorded, and certainly there is nothing in Sir John Colville's diaries, because by this time he had gone off and got another job, and he doesn't write a diary into 1942, or at this time. What we do know is that we have managed to come across these notes in archives, which is a conversation written by Cole Deacon about a certain gentleman. Now, we can only speculate who that certain gentleman is, but I expect most of you will imagine it to be the same person as we think it is, who is Sir Winston Churchill, exactly. And he said recorded on the 20th January 1941, a certain gentleman has requested us to arrange for the passage midway between the first and second landings to be converted for his use as speedily as possible. The plans prepared by your office has been approved, and it is desired that the work should be carried out as rapidly as possible. And then 2 days later, after speaking to Mr. Cole Deacon on the telephone, the chairman agreed that the work should proceed at once and be completed as early as possible. The chairman understands that the loss of our ventilating plant will be a serious matter and suggests that in constructing the special accommodation, you should have regard to the possibility of passing air through this passage if at any time accommodation is not being used. Please advise me hereon. So all we know is that in 1941, within a period of about 4.5 weeks, they built accommodation along this corridor. We don't know what. We don't know if it was living quarters. We don't know if it was offices. But obviously they needed a sewage ejecting plant. They needed to keep the ventilation going. And we have this map here, this plan, which is in the museum collection. And this is one of the original plans from the building of the station that has been adapted very, very quickly. So rather than make a copy and make a plan with a copy and a tracing on it, they have just drawn on the original plan, the original 1908 plan, 1904 plan. They haven't drawn that much, but what's in green is what was drawn on there. So we can see that there's this little alcove, and that has been drawn on by hand. And we then find out that it's mentioned as a telephone exchange. But we kind of think there was already a telephone exchange here. So we're going to find out a bit more about that, what we think that telephone exchange was. The floor has been changed, so there were spaces for different rooms, and we still have the, further on, we have the walls which have been plastered here as well, with yellow.
This clearly is the feature on that map. We no need for anything like this in the standard station. They've carved this out. It's a telephone exchange, and as Marion was saying, why? Well, this ended up being connected through to Selfridges. Why Selfridges? Well, the USA entered the war at the end of 1941, and they set their headquarters up in Selfridges. It was tinkering selfridge is basically they put in communications equipment, which meant they could communicate. They used an early encryption system called the X system. They could communicate out to all the allies.